We've got new updates from Blizzard on same faction Battlegrounds. Blizzard says over the last few days we've read thousands of pieces of feedback on the same faction Battleground test, and we've been working through what we can do in Burning Crusade Classic to meet as many of our goals as possible. Some players literally asked for more understanding of our goals, so we'd like to list out the goals we think are most pertinent, I guess that means important, to the Battleground queue situation. So, number 1, emulate the design pillars and intentions of original Burning Crusade game systems. You know what's weird? I wonder why they're talking like this. Do they all I don't think all blue posts are like this. What does that mean, design pillars? Emulate. Why can't they just say, like, try to make it how it used to be? They also want to leverage modern tech and design to address modern issues. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Make surgical changes, so I guess like very targeted, right, to the game to improve the player experience. I like that, right? You don't want sweeping changes, like completely overhaul the game, things like that. Address player concerns in ways that capture the spirit of the original design of the game. Sure, that seems fair. Those seems like fair goals so far. All right, let's see what else Blizzard has to say. Blizzard continues by saying, we've heard a clear majority of players telling us that they preferred same faction Battlegrounds after our first test. I actually also did a survey, and in those survey results, we saw that the vast majority of players actually also enjoyed same faction Battlegrounds, even if they were Horde or Alliance, although I will say that the majority of people who did not want same faction Battlegrounds were actually Alliance players, definitely the vast majority who said no were in fact Alliance, and the vast majority who said yes were in fact Horde. If that's any indication of which faction this benefits the most, obviously it's the Horde. During that test, we saw the benefits drastically lowered queue times and less unavoidable ganking in the outdoor world. We did discuss this briefly, how they noticed that ganking went down when more Horde players were allowed to get into Battlegrounds. They found that in the first test. They're just reiterating that. Because, right, when you're sitting in queue, what are you supposed to do besides go and try to get some honor in the open world? However, Blizzard continues, there were significant number of concerns registering on other related topics. We noticed that players were dismayed when the system occasionally launched an Alliance versus Alliance battleground. We reduced the likelihood of that a couple hours into the test, and we think we can do a little more there. Yeah, that doesn't seem to make any sense. You know, we've got such a scarce amount of Alliance players. They should probably always be playing Horde players because there's Horde are waiting in queues. Doesn't make any sense for Alliance to play against Alliance when it's Horde who are really waiting for the queue. Now, the quicker queues, Blizzard continues, revealed that a noticeable number of players were doing Battlegrounds in organized raids. Pre-mades, that means. This makes sense. The time it takes to form a pre-made is well invested for those players, right? You put, what does it take? Like 15 minutes to put together a pre-made, and then you win 99.99% of your games? Seems like it's worth it. But for the large number of players who choose to queue alone, there's essentially no hope of winning the BG. Completely true. Pug versus pre-made, you have absolutely no chance of winning. There are a couple of ways we can try addressing this. And in the next test, we'd like to try restricting groups to a maximum of 5 players in all Battlegrounds. Unbelievable! So there you have it. We have pre-mades essentially being reduced or semi-eliminated. The maximum number of people who can queue into Battlegrounds is now 5 players. This means that pre-mades are limited to 5 players. That is incredible. That means that Arathi Basin pre-mades, Warsong Gulch pre-mades, Eye of the Storm pre-mades, maximum of 5 players. I mean, it also applies to Alturk Valley, but I mean, I don't know who's pre-mating that, but that is crazy. Blizzard continues to say this should have the added benefit of allowing players who are in groups to quest while waiting in queue for Battlegrounds. That's awesome. Wait, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, added benefit. I was about to be like, was that their intention? They were like, oh, we wanted pre-mades to be able to quest while they wait to get into their pre-made. I was like, if that's your primary reasoning behind making this change, Blizzard, I think you missed the point. But okay, so it was the added benefit of allowing those groups to quest while waiting in queue for Battlegrounds. The added benefit, hopefully, is so that they don't have people go ganking. They're going and doing quests instead of ganking. Really the main thing that's important here is that pre-mades are like kind of dismantled in a way. Like, I think Blizzard didn't want to remove the ability for you to play with your friends, but they wanted to remove the ability for you to auto win every single game for like 4 hours or however long you're gonna be pre-mating by creating a pre-made and then just stomping pugs. So this somewhat addresses this issue. I think that it doesn't completely solve the issue, but I'd like to play some Battlegrounds and see how it feels, because it seems like this is actually probably going to go a decent way in order, like, to address the pre-made versus pug issue. Now, Blizzard continues by saying a major point of discussion was the perception that the faction a majority of players chose for their main character would see all players switch to it unless we changed the game to either reward the minority faction, punish the majority faction, or prevent players from choosing to play on the majority faction in the first place. Yes, we all know there is a ton of theory crafting on how to get a more balanced faction distribution. As you can see, Blizzard continues, and has been discussed at great length here and elsewhere, most such changes that might come to mind would conflict with our stated goals above. That's totally fair. Still, we'd like to see what happens when we place a reward for the minority faction into the game. This is Alliance. Globally, the faction imbalance is small, but the trend over the last few months has been towards a lower BG Battleground participation rate among Alliance players. This is definitely true. I cannot imagine anyone would want to solo queue as an Alliance player. I'm telling you guys, as an Alliance player, we lose most our games. It is no fun at all to read the chat where literally all the Alliance players are like, just let them win. It's over. Just end it quick. Like, that happens very quickly and very often in Alliance players, because Horde are Eminem style, literally one shot, one opportunity to get their daily done. They're not going to let it slip. They're highly motivated because it's the one game they're probably going to play that day. So Alliance typically lose. I seriously believe that. Even though Blizzard says overall Alliance and Horde win equally, I think it's because pre-mades are probably factored into that. But again, that's a discussion for another time. Could talk about that for a while. Now, Blizzard's post continues. We'll plan to run the next test for a week, starting with weekly maintenance, which is today. Well, I guess yesterday. Probably you're watching this on Wednesday. So Tuesday, July 20th, this is the next test, and they're gonna be enabling all the following. So this is currently live. Same faction Battlegrounds will be allowed by the matchmaker. The matchmaker will take a little more time to find an opposite faction match than it did during the first test. And groups will be restricted to a maximum of 5 players when joining the queue. Goodbye, pre-mades. And we're adding an enlistment bonus for Alliance players who participate. Hello. I almost read that as entitlement bonus for Alliance players who participate. But of course, Alliance players aren't entitled, of course. But I'm curious about what this enlistment bonus actually is. Now, aren't you? Now, Blizzard continues to say the enlistment bonus will be a repeatable level 70 quest offered by the Alliance Brigadier General in any Alliance capital or Shatrath. The quest rewards a battleground win with a box of loot that includes an appropriate amount of consumables, crafting materials, and currencies/tokens. We're planning to end this test with scheduled weekly maintenance next week, Tuesday, July 27th. In this region, we prefer having a clear beginning and end to it so that we can do more comparative analysis and take care as we decide what would be the best for the game and players going forward. So this is another huge change, offering this this loot box that you get if you win a Battleground as an Alliance player. An incentive to get more Alliance to queue into Battlegrounds, I think, is probably a move in the right direction, considering Alliance players don't want to PvP as much. At least solo queuing does not usually end well. The elimination of the pre-mades, I feel like, almost discourages Alliance to queue, because that's the only time you can win, it feels like. But with this incentive, maybe people are going to create 5-mans more and try to pump out some of those loot boxes, which we've actually seen some very interesting loot from, by the way. Blizzard doesn't say this explicitly, but they hint at it. Currency/tokens. We have screenshots confirming that the loot box does in fact drop PvE rewards, badges of justice. from the enlistment package. We've seen arcane tomes, eternium ore, corium ore, also useless things like Maghar grain, which, you know, obviously does not really help that much. But we've also seen basic things like netherweave cloth, super healing potions, gold, right, which is a nominal amount. Scroll of agility. We've seen all sorts of useless things, but also the badges of justice are not so useless and could be an incentive for people who would otherwise never play PvP. Get it perhaps an easier way to get a badge of justice, not having to form that group. Maybe you can just get one. So that, I think, is a pretty nice incentive. Now, moving on, Blizzard continues by saying, we think it's worth noting up front that the most powerful or most impactful part of this test should be the restriction on pre-mades, and we're going to be highly sensitive to how Battleground PvP feels for both players who usually queue up alone and players who would have otherwise formed raids before queuing. As before, we're going to open a new thread here when the test begins, and we'll be looking there for your thoughts on how the test went after you've experienced it. And as always, thank you very much for all your valuable feedback on the game. Thank you, Blizzard, because actually, guys, I did do my first pre-made ever within the last week or two, and guys, it did not feel right. It didn't feel right. It's really a terrible thing. Like, I mean, it's wonderful how quickly you can get marks and honor, but like the enemy team has zero chance if they're a pug of winning. Like, I'm serious. I did a pre-made. It was not pretty. The game was over sub 6 minutes every single time. I was doing a Arathi Basin. I mean, pre-made versus pug is just not fair at all. I think I've gone up against a pre-made once. The same situation. I'm like dead in the graveyard, just sitting there waiting for it to end. But that's not too far away from what happens in a regular game, Horde versus Alliance, if you're Alliance, depending on your experiences. But yeah, I really think they had to address this pre-made versus pug thing. So I think Battlegrounds are going to be going pretty well for this next week. I think I'm really happy with what Blizzard's doing because it just doesn't feel right to have these pre-mades. I mean, if you look into the future, that's what rated Battlegrounds were implemented to solve, right? These pre-mades who are just they're on Skype, they're on Discord, they're on Ventrilo. They've got that communication, not to mention they've got benchmarks. So like, yo, I'm not going to accept you into my pre-made unless you got like 200 resilience. So you've got the cream of the crop. You got people communicating. Take that up against the random people. You got 1 or 2 AFKers in the random pug. You got people who fresh 70s just trying to get some honor, and again, nobody's communicating, right? Or it's just text communication. So take that versus the other, and you can see where that's usually going to end. So guys, just want to give you guys this update from Blizzard, my take on it. I think it's a great step. Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, guys, if you like the video, don't forget to give it a like. If you want more World of Warcraft content, don't forget to subscribe. My name's Toyhouze, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.